Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to one of Mike King here. This is part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. ESPN Richmond 106.1 is where you find us, Monday to Friday, 5 a.m. Alrighty, so this is the Empower People. I'm empowering myself with people. So we got Tiffany Greene, who is here with us. And we also have my man Douglas Alexander. He's in a faraway place. He's like way far away, but he's bringing in with his expertise. Tiffany, start us off and talk about what we're doing here today.
So today we're going to be talking about, first let me just explain real quick what Empower People is, or who Empower People is, right? So Empower People is a nonprofit, and our why is actually to empower people and drive positive impact by educating, connecting, and supporting purpose and mission-driven leaders. So we firmly believe by educating and connecting these purpose-driven leaders, we can drive positive impact, ergo empowering people. So today I invited Doug onto the show because I have some insight as to what Doug's been working on for a little bit here, talking about why and purpose, and why he's really honed in on his why and purpose, and how that actually impacts his business, but how he feels that's actually going to impact the community as a whole as well. So I thought it'd be great to have Doug come on and talk about it. So we don't just hear from me and you, Mike.
No, and he's, welcome to the program, Doug. He is a dapper gentleman, I may say, all the time. And a wealth of information. All righty, sir. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, as you both said, I'm Douglas Alexander. What I do is I make sure that our clients don't experience what my mother experienced when my father died suddenly at the age of 51, leaving a stay-at-home mom alone without a financial plan with a 13-year-old and me as a 7-year-old. So my role is to make sure my clients do not experience that drama and trauma my mother experienced back when my father died.
So what you're offering is people do not live your lived experience. And you're doing that so that is, I guess, a portion of his why, Tiffany, and his purpose. So we're coming right back to the purpose part again. So, Doug, talk a little bit about when people show up, they don't know what the possibilities of what they may encounter. They have no idea, and that's where you step in to help.
Yes. My role, I'm a fiduciary, I'm a financial planner. My role is to help educate and guide my clients. I have different experiences with people when they come in the office. Some are experienced and have worked with other advisors in the past, and for whatever reasons, they're sitting in my office either to get a second opinion or something is lacking that they want to have addressed. The other side of it is people walking in the door who do not have any experiences with an advisor, be it an insurance agent, stockbroker, anybody in my field. So those are the two experiences that I have encountered. My role is to sit and listen and see how I can be of help. Plain and simple.
It gets down to that. That's it.
That's it. I mean, really, because when somebody walks in the door, one person can walk in the door and had some problems in their life. They're either going through a divorce or somebody passed away or somebody that they knew had a negative experience and they're trying to address it. So I don't know when somebody's walking in the door what it is that I can do for them. And the only way I'm going to be able to sit and find out is to talk to them. Have a cup of coffee, have some of our freshly baked chocolate chip cookies, and come in and just sit down and talk. That's what it's all about, person to person.
All right, Tiffany, that is the explanation of the why. And we've talked to business owners and business people before about the importance of why and being purpose-driven. He's in an industry where it is very important for people to understand, but also to get that purpose and your why. Talk about that from a business standpoint.
So, when I hear Doug talk about his why and what happened with his mom, Doug, would you mind elaborating on what actually happened after your dad died and what happened to your mom? Because I think this is pretty integral to Doug's why, and this is how it shapes the business, his business meaning. So,
Okay. I grew up in New York City. I was born in New York City, Manhattan, and we had a house in Jamaica Estates, Queens. My father had come back from the war, and my brother and I were born after that. So I was born in 1954, 9 years after World War II had ended. We had a house in Queens, and my mother had convinced my father to go all the way out to Sag Harbor, because back then it was all the way out there, out on Long Island.
It's a long way.
It was a long way. With the Long Island Expressway today, it takes you about 2 hours to get out there from Queens. Back in the day, it took us about 6 or 7 hours. My mother and father were a loving couple. My father was an accountant in a business, and he was in the process of trying to buy that business in Long Island City, New York. And he suddenly died of a heart attack. Now, my mother was a stay-at-home mom. She hadn't worked at all. And then what happened was it took, as a kid growing up watching this, first of all, going through the process of family coming over and the condolences and all. But over a period of time, and I can't say whether it was a year, 2 years, but it was somewhere in that time frame, between a year and a half, 2 years, I saw my mother have to sell the Sag Harbor house and our Queens residence and move us into a 2-bedroom apartment. Now, back in 1958, 1959, when they bought that land and built that house, it was about a $25,000 home. Today, that same home would cost you about 1.8 million to 2 million or more. Now, we went from a large house to a 2-bedroom apartment where my brother, myself, and my mother were living. It threw her into a position where she had to try to find ways to make money. Now, my parents came from overseas, and my grandfather taught my mother overseas how, to look at property and land. So my grandfather, while he was buying and selling property, taught my mother. So that was my mother's saving grace. Somehow she was able to take some of the insurance money, it wasn't a lot, from my father and buy a duplex and then rent it out and then make some income from that and then turn around and sell that. So that's how she started to recoup slowly, but it was a long, arduous process. And so I witnessed that as a 7, 8-year-old. I also, because my brother was in high school, I was the one that mom had to drag out when it was snowing and we had to ice or, shovel the snow. So I watched from close up what my mother had to go through in order to turn it around financially. And it took her a number of years. And that left a large impact on my life, which is how I proceed with making sure our clients don't experience that by doing what needs to be done and checking all the boxes.
So one of the things that I like about what Doug does is he's not just a financial planner. He's a financial wealth being expert. So typically when you see a financial advisor, what do? They ask you, like, where's your money? Where are your assets? And then they put a plan together as to how they can grow those assets that you currently have, right? And their goal is to say, I'm going to be able to grow more effectively than wherever you got them right now. That's typical,
That's it.
right? But that's not what Doug does. That's only part of what Doug does. Doug looks at the whole financial picture for a human, right? So you go into his office and you say, well, these are my goals. This is what I want. Maybe when I retire, I want to be able to go on a cruise every year. My children are dispersed amongst the United States. I want to be able to visit them. I want to be able to afford that. I want to spoil my grandchildren. This is all the stuff I want. So Doug looks at their financial well-being, and Doug can say, well, I appreciate your goals. So in order to achieve those goals, this is what you're going to need to support those goals. So he just doesn't take your assets and then try to find the best way or best return on them. He tries to get you a plan that's actually going to help you achieve your goals. And that might mean Doug telling you, you need to pick up a side hustle. You need to reprioritize some of the things. Or maybe one thing I heard Doug say before was, sometimes it's best to sell your house and rent. Now, not again, I'm sure Doug will say that's not true in everybody's case, but in some cases, right? So it's not a one size fits all approach.
That way. Everybody wants to talk about the rate of return. Here's my experience. Clients think in percentages when you make money, nickels and dimes when your accounts are losing money. All right. And we all play in the same pool. So me trying to say to you, our funds are better, our management style is better than, the company that you're working with is foolish. But here's where we separate ourselves. We look at tax planning, we look at insurance planning, we look at investment planning. We look at what happens if you end up becoming diagnosed with Parkinson's. How do you address that? What happens to your lifestyle? What happens to your living conditions? Have you addressed that? I have clients who come in here don't have a will, and I say, look, if you end up in an accident and on a machine, nobody can turn off that machine if that's what your final wishes are. So it's not just about the investment pool, but it's about the whole picture. And that's what we do.
All right, one of my Tiffany Greene here, Doug Alexander's with us. So Tiffany, a lot of times we have conversations about holistic, the holistic approach to business, the importance of empowering your people. And what Doug is talking about doing is doing a holistic approach. It's not just about the money. And
That's right.
and we've had the conversation before about it's more than the money. So Doug, let's play a little game here. So I'm gonna ask you to give a couple of words of, I don't want to say arrogance, but the level of urgency when people out of a certain age show up on your doorstep for you. What's it like when a 20-some-year-old, maybe I'm not even sure 20-some-year-olds come to you, but a 30-year-old person comes to you? What's their level of urgency about, I need to get my act together?
It really depends. If there's a problem at home or in the family, then there's a sense of urgency. Other than that, it's come see, come ça.
I got time.
Get to it tomorrow. We get to it tomorrow. Back in the 90s, there was a couple on the nightly news almost every night and for a very long period. The woman's name was Terry Schiavo.
I remember.
And they had a I love you will. If anything happens to me, this is what you do. And they didn't have any formal legal documents at all. And if you remember, she was, I think, brain dead and on a machine. And the husband wanted to turn off the machine because that was her wishes. But because there wasn't a legal document giving him permission, the parents stepped in and said, no, we want her around as long as we can have her. And it became a very large court case on the nightly news on a regular basis. And people don't get that. They don't see the sense of urgency, that you need to have your legal documents in order. Now, let me tell you something. As a financial planner, if I'm talking to you about legal documents, there isn't a way I'm getting paid for that because I don't deal with that. That is really for the attorney. But if I'm doing my job right, my role as an advisor, as a fiduciary, as a financial planner is to direct that client to an attorney ASAP to get their documents in order. Their legal documents, their wills, their medical directives. And that's just one aspect of it. You start talking about holistic planning in the sense of what happens if somebody's diagnosed with Parkinson's or MS? How does that affect their lifestyle and their finances? So you got to look at the whole picture. Otherwise, I'm not doing the job for the client. And they should move on to somebody else.
The level of, really quickly, the level of concern when a 50-year-old person shows up.
They're a little, you'd be surprised, even some 50-year-olds don't have wills, but there's less of that happening in my experience than in the 30-year-old. So with a 50-year-old, they're coming in, their situation is they're 50, their kids, if they have kids and they're married, are probably in their 20s. So they're either just finishing college or out of college in a job or trying to get a job. They may or may not be living at home. In this economy, more than likely they're living at home, and their parents would like to see them get out and on their own and be self-supportive. But a 50-year-old, their role, they're kind of like right in the middle. They're just about finishing with college or just finished with college, and they're now looking at themselves and saying, you know, in 10 or 15 years, I want to retire. So now I've got to really focus on my retirement. So they're right at that point where they're starting to look towards retirement more seriously, because if they have kids and the kids are out of college, they feel like they've dodged that bullet, they've gotten them through college, and now it's time for them to look at themselves.
So one of the things that Doug does that I like is going back to his why, which is going back to his mom and, you know, his dad passing away at the age of 51 and his mom going, oh crap, now what, right? Is one of the ways to avoid that is to start planning your financial well-being as early as you can. And you never know when your time is up, right? So yes, we should be focusing on retirement, but we also have other goals and objectives we might want to reach in our 20s and in our 30s and in our 40s and our 50s. So what Doug has done is he's created packages depending on the life stage in which you're at. So he can help you plan out and map out your financial well-being for what you need. So like a 20-year-old, I want to get out of my mom's and dad's house. I want to be on my own. I don't want to have to tell them every time I'm leaving the house where I'm going, who I'm doing it with, or where were you all night. I don't want to deal with that anymore. So Doug can work with that young adult on creating the plan to get him out of that parent's house, and also can help that person decide what benefits do I need to focus on when I get that job, or how do I negotiate a job offer, or how much do we really need to be putting into that 401k they're offering me? These are all the things that Doug can do. So a lot of times, right, when you think about financial planning, you think about the person who's about to retire or is retired, but Doug works with folks long before that, because guess what? If you're already retired, your areas of opportunity to grow your assets to get you the life you want have now significantly diminished. So why not start young and early?
There you go, Tiffany Greene dropping nuggets. Doug is with us. We're talking financial planning at a different level, on a holistic approach.
So
one thing I wanted to add, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'll just say this and you can take it back, Tiffany. We're living longer today. When I did a program on Social Security planning a while back, I printed out 33 pages of people over the age of 100. So if you want to see how many people over the age of 100, you Google names of individuals over the age of 100, you'll get 33 pages of people over the age of 100. The first page, the oldest was 113 years old. And that was the first page of about 5 or 6 names. We're living longer. So think about this. You decide you want to retire at 60 or 65, and I have people say, well, you know, my family longevity isn't until, you know, we don't live past 75. But my question to them is, how do you answer that question on the day you turn 76? You know, if you're in retirement and you have the potential of being in retirement as long as, or if not longer than when you worked, you better have a plan that carries you all the way out. That's all I wanted to say.
So,
Tiffany, I didn't
Doug,
want to
if
interrupt
good
you. I'm
clean
sorry.
living, good clean living, you might have to take into account for that on the financial side.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. One of our friends who passed away, she was 103, and I asked her when she was in her 90s, how did she live to, 90? And she said, I swim every day, a glass of wine, and dark chocolate.
Well, let me, you know what, I might have to take up swimming in dark chocolate. At 64, I'm like, whoo, lordy. All right, so we got Doug Alexander here with us talking finances. Tiffany Greene is here with us talking empowering people. Tiffany, how can people find information out about empowering people? Because we do it the cool way. Well, you do it the cool way.
Yes, we do. It's MPWRPeople.org, and we spell empower MPWR people, PEOPLE.org. You can also reach out to me directly at TJ Greene with an E at the end, not the color, at empowerpeople.org.
Alrighty, Doug, how can we find information about you, sir?
Well, you can email me at Douglas let me give you this email address, dalexander@manhattanridge.com, or a phone call, 804-501-0680.
Tiffany Greene, Doug Alexander, folks, it has been a pleasure. So, Tiffany, I just had Stacy here with us, and we talked about the Empower Hour and the power of it. Really quickly, send us out here with a good feel about being a purpose-driven organization.
So a purpose-driven organization ultimately is an organization that is not just focused on the dollars and cents of it all. We all know that that dollars and cents is just simply a KPI, key performance indicator, but a purpose-driven organization or a leader is focused on something bigger, whether like in Doug's case, it's to make sure that everybody has a financial well-being plan so they can achieve their purpose, and to collaborate with others who share a common aligned purpose. So the more that we work together as organizations who have aligned mission and purpose, the better the impact we can have, and the more people we can therefore empower.
That's the power, folks. Thank you, guys. We got to take care. Take care now. We got to run. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.